Hello, William Moore here from the AIStoryLab, and in this workshop, you're going to be learning three things in particular. Number one, you're going to be learning the proper theoretical frameworks in which these AI systems think. So basically, you're going to be learning how the machine minds work, and this is really good because it helps you understand how to craft better prompts to get better results, because you understand how these machines basically reference the language that they use. Number two, you're going to be learning about the best practice when it comes to writing fiction, especially sort of big world fiction, and this would apply to whether you're writing a fantasy or sci-fi or, the genre actually doesn't matter. Thirdly, you're going to learn about the fractal style of prompting fiction, which is also transferable to things like writing movie script or pretty much anything long form. I really hope you guys enjoy this, and I hope you learned something. Without further ado, let's get into it. And of course, I know different people want different things from these videos. So for that purpose, there's going to be timestamps at the bottom so you can sort of skip and, watch whatever you find most interesting. With that being said, let me introduce my little AI robot friend, William. It's just a little, a little meta joke, basically. And both of us are going to be guiding you through this course. Enjoy. Before we start, my full name, William Moore. I have been writing for 10 years. I was shortlisted for the Miles Morland Scholarship for African Rights. My most recent manuscript was also shortlisted for the James Curry Prize for African Manuscript. I think that was about 2-3 years ago. And my graphic series 13 Moons was published some 5 years ago, and it's garnered over 66,000 downloads as we speak. So I just say all this to point out that I'm what you would call an OG in the writing industry, because one of the things I've noticed AI has definitely done is promote this idea of grifting. So you have people that don't really respect what storytelling is, just sort of feel, I can just use AI and do one or two and maybe get some views on YouTube or whatever. No, I've been writing professionally for a very long time, and what I'm trying to do here is to teach people how to actually incorporate your own voice to use AI in a very authentic way to tell your own stories. So with that being said, I'm just going to kick off with an intro video, mainly because I believe, why would you want to learn how to write from AI from me if you haven't seen what I can write with AI? So what I'm about to play for you, this was written with AI, voiced with AI, illustrated with AI. But yeah, enjoy.
The boy's fingers tore at the wildflower's roots when the screaming started. Not human screams, the birds. A shrill, feathered panic as they exploded from the trees. Then, silence. Cheek from SS-1A froze. His green checkered uniform clung to his bony frame, damp with sudden sweat. The air turned thick, rancid with the stench of wet hay and rotting meat. His stomach lurched. An A+ in agriculture was not worth this much. He didn't even have any interest in becoming a farmer. He just liked his report card, without the blemish of a B+. Something dripped behind him, a wetness over his shoulder and then splatter on his thick frames. He turned just as the first string of hot saliva struck his naked neck. Burning. The drool sizzled against his skin like acid. Not the kind that would fry you in an instant, but a sizzle nonetheless, like hair relaxer staying too long. The thing stood so close, he could count the yellow teeth in its sideways jaws, each one as long as his fingers and as wide as his palm. Before him, a bull-like monster the size of a literal truck salivated. Its breath smelled of half-digested grass and something else. Something sweet. Oh God, that's blood, Chike ran. His two big sneakers slapped against the hard earth as his mother's voice echoed with the famous African truth. You will grow into it. Behind him, the ground quaked. Each footfall, a small earthquake. Closer, closer. He should have never gone this deep into the school farm. He already got 15 of the 20 plants they were to gather for their coursework. A B+ should have been fine for just one assignment. But no. He had to get it all, and now he was too deep in the thick of it. His ankle caught on a root, breaking him out of all the thoughts that tumbled through his head as he tumbled through the marsh. The impact knocked the air from his lungs. He flipped onto his back just as the jaws yawned wide, a wet tunnel of palpitating flesh, strings of mucus stretching between jagged teeth. The bite came down like a bear trap. Crunch. White heat exploded exploded through his leg as the molars found his knee. He heard the pop before he felt it, tendons snapping like rubber bands. A sneaker tore free, spinning through the air as he thrashed. From the teeth marks punched deep into the sole, this shoe just might have saved his foot. The second bite took him at the waist. Cheek had time to register the texture, the rasp of a sandpaper tongue against his ribs, before the throat muscles rippled and sucked him down into the dark. Above ground, the half-eaten sneaker landed with a soft thud. Deep in the monster's gut, a muffled wail echoed, and then the night was silent.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that somewhat, and you were able to see what you can actually do with these machines. Basically, before we actually kick off, something I would definitely like to point out is the fact that there is no right or wrong way when you are using AI. It's like having a friend and someone saying, oh, there is a right or wrong way of asking your friend the question. I would encourage you to think about it from an optimal or suboptimal framework. It sort of means that there are better ways, but there are no right and wrong ways. These machines work with natural language. So the whole point is for you to try and be as human as you can in your conversation style, basically. So first of all, understanding the AI brain. You as a person, when you say the words, I love you, you understand that through the context of knowing the meaning of those words, i.e., you understand love, for example, as a feeling. You even understand I as a feeling, like a reference of you as who you are. And even when you say love you, the you is also a real concept that you hold in your mind for the person you're saying this about. When you say, oh, I am coming home, this is fused with the experience of distance and travel, right? For a machine that has no sensory data input, that only relies just on data and can only process data, this is not possible. They have no context. So when the machine says, I love you, it doesn't understand what it means to love because it has no reference point for the feeling in that sort of human understanding. What it does have is a reference for pattern. It's trained with quadrillions and quadrillions of data sets. So it knows, for example, that if you say, I love you, for example, it knows from books and movies and all that a lot of the times the answer is, I love you too, but it doesn't know what it means to love you too. It can just predict that, basically. To sort of put it plainly, these machines work with sort of like a predictor graph based on data, and we work more so from experiences and feelings. So it is up to you, the writer, to create the context that would resonate with people when you are writing with AI. And what this means is that you can't just pawn off the work to the AI. If not, it's going to produce things that have already been produced because that is what it's trained on. It is relying on you, the person, to give it the context to write something authentic or something original. And in case you were at a party and for whatever reason you had to explain the way the AI brain works in sort of a more mathematical complex way, this is the best I can come up with. And this is a good time to say I'm not, like a mathematician or anything, but this is just a way to think of it. So it works by assigning numbers to different categories in what they call high dimensional space. So think about the 3D space. So imagine my fist was a point, right? And from this point, you have all these parameters poking out in different directions. So you're thinking a billion directions or whatever, right? So you have dog, cat, domestic animal, pet. These are sort of things in the same arena. Closer to them, you might have maybe canines, wolves. And because these are things in the same category, they sort of occupy the same space and are related to other categories in similar ways. King and queen, for example, and royalty, these are things that would be clumped together. So what it does is when it reads a sentence, it knows that this is 0.3 and 2.4 and 5.6. And based on knowing how many other places it has seen that pattern and other things in front and behind it, it can generate new ideas that are within the constraint of how that pattern moves around. Very technical stuff, but just thought to sort of give you an idea. So when people say, oh, the machine is thinking, it's not so much thinking as it's calculating / processing. Context window, very important concept for any writer trying to use AI to understand. Why? Basically, the context window is how much the model can see at any given time. while you are chatting with it. So a lot of them, maybe free models or smaller models, have about 4,000 tokens, which is about 3,000 words. What this means is you're trying to feed it background information about a novel you want to write, and you've created this ridiculously long 10,000 page document. It's only going to read 3,000, then it's going to stop. It can't see the rest. So you have to know what model you're using, know what the context window is, so you know when you're sort of overfeeding the model or when you can, be underfeeding the model. A lot of the newer models obviously have north of 80,000 words. You don't really have to worry so much. Maybe you have a 12-book series and you're trying to feed it the whole 12 books. That might not be the best way to go. You might be better off sort of summarizing each book and then feeding it that, instead of feeding it the whole 12, because it's going to be out of the context window. Something else a lot of people don't know about as well is the long memory limit of a lot of these AI systems. People say, can I use a single prompt to write a novel? No, there's no AI system currently, at least in public, can do that. Maybe Sam Altman or whoever has one in their basement that can, but currently it's not possible. And this is why, even if the context window is 80,000 whatever words, which is about as long as a novel, think about it as you as a person, right? If I gave you a whole novel to read and I asked you to sort of write me an essay on this novel, chances are you can't just generate of another 1,000 page essay for me. You probably give me 10 pages of a summary or something, because when we read a lot of these books, we might not even remember a lot of the things that happen in the middle. Yeah, like even we as human beings don't have that kind of long memory. And for the machine, you're keeping in mind it can't reference the results as it's giving it. You as a human being, you can actually afford to write a novel that is 80,000 words in a stretch, because as you are writing, you are referencing back to what you're writing at the same time. The machine has to give the results before it can reference back. So this really causes, a very, very serious problem. It would have to hold a concept in his head and run a calculation that would give it a predictable 80,000 words. It's pretty much next to impossible. So to sort of circumvent this system, that is why we use fractal prompting. And the concept of fractal prompting is basically you breaking down a long form writing exercise into story beats. Right. As we move on, we're going to cover what story beats are and how they, work best with AI and all that. But it's basically you breaking your story into parts, if you may, and then prompting it to write by part. So how to write stories with AI? There are 3 prominent ways I think people use AI to write stories. The first is the fully generated method. This is basically the AI doing most of the imagination, and you're just sort of egging it on. So this is what happens when you say, oh, I need a sci-fi idea about aliens from the moon, and it will generate a bunch for you. And you say, okay, expand on number 3. So give me the first 15 chapters, and it gives you the first 15 chapters. And you're like, okay, expand on part 1 of chapter 1. So you just sort of going with the motion, but you are not applying your own ideas. Like the idea that you're going with is fundamentally generated by the AI. So that is what I think of as AI fully generated, basic. Number 2, I refer to as assisted generation. Assisted generation happens when you have some sort of foundational concept that you've already come up with. So say, for example, J.K. Rowling, for example, has already built the Harry Potter world, right? So she could summarize the world in a Word document, give it to the AI, and then tell it, I want to make a fancy spin-off episode of someone trying to break out of Azkaban. And then the AI would sort of, based on what it knows about the wizarding world and all that, it can sort of generate something in that line. But she has given it the background world that it's working with, basically. And then the third one, which is guided generation, is when you've given it the background information of the world, but also you are guiding the narrative. We're going to see real example of all this. And this is a workshop. We're not going anywhere. Guided generation is when you are actually guiding the narration and letting it know, okay, I want them to get into the house here. But yeah, we'll get to that. Generally speaking, there are two main types of stories that we tell. We tell short episodic stories or long running stories. Episodics are sort of like issue of a comic book, episode of something like CSI, Scooby-Doo. These are things that stand alone. Like you could sort of watch an episode by itself and it would be okay in itself, right? And then long running stories are more so stories where you have to sort of like Prison Break or the Game of Thrones, where the episodes sort of continue and the story is built on basically. Now, for the purpose of this workshop, we're going to be doing something in the episodic because I just feel like it is shorter, it's more compact. It's a lot easier to onboard people with. So first of all, before we get into anything, I have to say this. The most important aspect of working with AI is developing the most effective context Bible. This is because this is the document the AI would generally be referencing to create things within the world you want. I couldn't stress it enough. And as we go through this, I'm going to share an example of a good content Bible with you. I strongly believe that the best way for me to teach you this is to show you what I have done, how I have done it. And to do that, I'll be using an example of a universe that I'm currently creating using artificial intelligence. It's called the League of Extraordinary Prefects, LOEP for short. And it sort of follows these two prefects, quote unquote, who go to these secondary schools and solve monster/ghost crimes. This one I share the prompts that I use and all that. A lot of this will become clearer, but for now, these are what I think are the most important things in your context document. You're giving the AI a summary. So here I'm saying set in a modern day Nigeria with a hidden paranormal underworld. LEOP follows Junior Runner Prefect K and Junior Scribe Prefect Ash on their adventures using science to hunt down monsters, ghosts, and other paranormal entities attacking secondary schools. Genre, think Ghostbusters meets Men in Black with CSI and a sprinkle of paranormal African spookiness. LOEP is written to be enjoyed by fans of young adults, adventure, science fiction, crime thrillers, and paranormal tales. Tags include YA, witty, educational, sci-fi, paranormal, visceral, spooky, crime. Now, the reason this is written this way, like we already said, is because the AI doesn't understand language contextually. So if I just said horror and crime, these genres, you have horror that is like ghost kind of horror, and then you have horror that is more like more psychological kind of horror, or like a haunted house kind of horror, and these are all in the horror tags. So the better referencing you can give the AI with examples, it just allows it to quote unquote picture what you have in mind a lot better. So if you didn't watch the video before, I would encourage you to just watch it a little bit now, because what we're about to go on now will be me explaining a lot about how I did the things that you would be seeing in the video. So it just makes more sense if you watch it now.
The staff room reeked of instant coffee and stale panic. Headmaster Pius gripped the lectern like he wanted to strangle it, his starched collar digging into his sweat-slick neck. The missing boy's file lay open before him, smiling school photo glaring up like an accusation. It's the governor's son. How did this happen? Who let this happen? By dawn tomorrow, Pius said through clenched teeth, that child better be sitting in class with nothing worse than grass stains, or this school will be a smoking crater by lunch. Call the police, CID, EFFC, MOPOL. If they fight crime or find missing people, I want them here. Mr. Ike, the chemistry teacher, nodded and reached for his phone. It will be taken care of, sir. We will find him. The phone began to ring. In no time, most of the law enforcement agents in the town were in ICE Unity School trying to earn the governor's favor. A perimeter had been mapped out with tapes, like in the movies. And even when the evening came, floodlights were awake to illuminate the scene. In the midst of all the badges and uniforms, the Secret League's forensic team worked gathered intel, sending real-time information from their AR glasses to the League's HQ. Shoe trainer, size 6 with what looks like bite marks. The AI assistant in the glasses scanned the teeth marks, cross-referenced with their database of images, and responded with a pop-up. Are you seeing this HQ? Might have to call Kay and Ash on this one. Prefect Ash was peering into a petri dish in her lab, while the room hummed with the sound of experiments, spinning centrifuges, bubbling of distilling liquids, and a cacophony of other noises. If their phone was not on vibrate in her pocket, she might have even missed it. Prefect Ash here, please tell me it's an important call. I'm trying to distill a new compound here. Well, I'm sure that is very important Nobel-winning work, but right now we have a code black situation. Great, that's 2 colors away from red. Perhaps a junior prefect would be better suited. The man from HQ was silent for a second. Well, yeah, but this involves a KPI. Ash responded. I'm sure I've met my numbers for the quarter already. Key person of interest, not key performance indicator. You should have said VIP then. She adjusted her glasses, pushing the connector on his nose bridge. Ash, I don't call the shots. This file landed on my desk and yourself and Kay have been specifically requested for. It's signed by the head prefect. There was a long pause from both ends. Fine, I'll come in. I take it you will be contacting Kay too, because I'm not calling him. Before the man on the phone could convince her to make the call instead, she pressed the red icon. Yeah, Kay is your problem. She went back to peering into the microscope. The military barrack was a mess in the heavy rain, but that didn't stop the drill sergeants from doing their drills. 100 push-ups, fat boys, let's go. Kay thought his arms were already made of spaghetti, and not the hard type either. He muttered 8-4 under his breath as he pushed through the pain. No push-ups, no food. Why do I see people stopping? This was when Kay's phone vibrated and then rang out. Even in the rain, one could hear the silence that followed. One of you brought your phone with you? The drill sergeant barked. The group with him weren't really men and women of the army. These were mainly players in the private security sector, coming over for training and certification to boost their personal services. I'm sorry, sir, this is my emergency-only phone. If it's ringing, it means someone is about to die. Yeah, and if you answer it, you're not graduating from this set. Rules, and we said no phones. Kay looked at the screen to see the words. Code black. Respond now. Orders from head boy. I guess I'll be back later to finish this then. Kay picked the call and stepped under the dinning mess's roof. This had better be good, HQ. He allowed the man on the other end of the phone speak at length, and then send him some files. When the man was done, Ash sighed. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Wouldn't hurt if you send a jet. Surely the governor can make that happen. The next morning, Ash and Kay were at the League's HQ waiting in the briefing room, which was mostly space, a projector screen, and 4 single chairs to sit on. I thought it was a joke when I asked for a plane. These governors really move fast when they feel like it. You got here on a plane. Kay, the League needs money for more important things. Like what? More AI research, monster cellular studies, new weapons, and what does it matter? It's being paid for from our national cake. The door swung open to reveal the HQ's senior prefect, also known as the voice on the phone. Senior Osas, you can't just get Kay a jet to fly him here because he asked you to. Yes, but he was training with the army in Nasarawa and I couldn't risk it by road. Not that it matters. The Enugu state governor isn't only paying for everything regarding this mission. He is offering pretty much our 1-year budget if we succeed at this. So if you are done with your sibling bickering, we can start the brief now before the head boy gets me fired. We are in a time bomb situation with a whole day already lost. The pair sat down and Osa started the briefing, turning on the projector. We know the boy was attacked around 6 p.m. Tuesday, and from the teeth marks on his sneakers, we can guess it's some type of giant herbivore. The projector flickered to life with the image of a half-eaten Nike shoe and the model of a herbivore's dentition. The senior continued. We didn't find any traces of blood, well, at least human blood. We found some digestive enzymes consistent with herbivore saliva. Ruminant class beast, common name the Great Ruminator. Ash didn't look up from her tablet, where the Encyclopedia Monstrorum displayed a gape-mouthed bovine skull. 4 stomach chambers. Full digestion takes 72 hours, which gives us about another 24 hours before the regurgitation for mastication. She zoomed in on the rendering of a pulsing, mucus-lined reticulum. The governor's kid is currently being pre-chewed, just bathing in enzymes to prep him. Kay, still in army fatigues from his interrupted drills, giggled at the word mastication. So we're playing fetch with a cow now. The projector flickered again as the screen changed, casting a hoofprint shadow across the wall, wider than a dinner plate and about as long as a man's arm. Ah, Kay's grin died. A giant demon cow. Ash's fingers flew across her keyboard. Ruminators swallow prey whole for later regurgitation, like an owl pellet, but the screen updated with a 3D simulation of a humanoid shape dissolving in green acid, with more screaming. We can't let him make it back to the mouth, let alone the second chamber, which is super acidic. When we update the Bible, this is certainly going to be the new Jonah and the whale, Kay said. HQ's senior prefect tossed 2 student ID badges onto the table. You're transferring to Ice Bright Secondary School. Mr. Ike, the chemistry teacher, is our embedded agent. He handed out 2 dossiers with the pair's fake identity. Kay flipped open his and groaned, son of a beverage distributor from Onitsha? Why can't I ever be the genius scholarship kid? This is getting old. Ash grinned, which was a rarity in itself. Without another word, she pinned her prefect badge to her blazer, and instantly, its ancient magic began to morph her 18-year-old frame into the chubby 15-year-old she once was. In response to Kay's question, she replied, "Because geniuses," she said as her bones cracked into a younger frame, "don't giggle at the word massication." Outside, a car horn blared. "Tick-tock prefix, a child's life depends on you. We cannot let the chewing begin." The gates of Ice Bright School loomed like prison bars as they approached the high fence designed to keep boarding pupils and apparently monsters in. I remember wishing the school would have been on fire every time I saw the gates after a holiday or even midterm break. Kay smiled. I remember looking forward to resuming. We didn't have a lab or library at home, Ash countered. Ash adjusted her new uniform, a stiff white polyester shirt under a navy blue pinafore, reeking of starch and false identity. The league's pin prickled against her collarbone, its camouflage magic humming beneath her skin. Beside her, Kay cracked his knuckles, already looking like he'd been expelled twice before lunch. "Remember," Ash muttered, "we're here to eat chalk and get swallowed by a demon cow," Kay finished. "Got it." The whispers started before they reached the administration block, even before they got to the Mr. Ike's lab to check in. Heard it ripped Chika clean in half. No, it dissolved him like those frogs in chemistry. They only found one shoe. "Misha, I know once my parents hear about this, I'm gone from this school." A hulking senior blocked their path, his grin all crooked teeth and cruelty. "Fresh meat for the grinder," he sneered, breath reeking of cheap candy. "You'll last till Thursday, maybe." Kay opened his mouth, probably to ask if the grinder accepted meal plans, when the first bell screamed through the courtyard. Mr. Ike's chemistry classroom smelled of bleach and secrets. Beakers bubbled with liquids too iridescent to be curriculum approved, and an exploded sample volcano sat by the corner too. "You're late," he said without turning, polishing a glass tube that looked suspiciously like a rifle barrel. Ash went straight to the steel cabinet. "We need the AP7s fully stacked." "Allez, relax first, you just come." "Excuse my runner's enthusiasm. They are always like that," Ash interjected. "I used to be one too. Don't worry, Scribe Ash, I understand." Mr. Ike moved to a cabinet. "I have something smaller already prepped for recon." Beneath the carcasses of some frogs, twin pistols rested, their transparent reservoirs filled with viscous blue and liquid. Lopramide cocktail in the left chamber, antacid rounds in the right. It won't do much, but it should at least let you crawl out of the belly of the beast if you get eaten. I've been there before. Try not to get eaten. Please say that again for my runner prefect. This is a quick recon to an all-out war, Ash said. Kay laughed and hefted his gun. What's the payload? About 12 rounds, 6 for each drug, so yeah, shoot sparingly. Ash's eyes hovered over the lab, test tubes, pipette stands, round bottom flasks, and other casual school apparatus waited on desks. Might be a lot to ask, but could you put together something for us? An emesis bomb. Mr. Ike squinted as his bushy brows furrowed. What exactly do you have in mind? I'm thinking a mixture of ethanol and disulfiram in a starch base. You are really as smart as advertised, very clever. I can have that ready for this evening. The AP backpack shooter will also be ready. Kay wanted to say something else, but the blast of the assembly bell was quick to interrupt. You have about 45 minutes until people are back in class, and they love a morning attendance roll call here. Mr. Ike tossed Kay a red cape. Hopefully you won't be needing this for a recon mission, but if you do, ruminators like bulls are attracted to red. Kay tied on the red sheet of cloth in a double knot by his neck. I didn't have becoming Superman on my bingo card this year. Why do you think the ruminator attacked the boy? Aren't they supposed to be herbivores? Ash asked. My guess, he was in his green boarding house where the ruminator probably thought he was some new type of plant it needed to taste. Mr. Ike checked his leather-strapped watch. You're losing time. The pair slipped away vaguely, catching a wind of the principal's droning safety lecture over the assembly loudspeakers. Avoid wooded areas. They had since studied the school map and committed it to memory, a task Kay somehow managed to best Ash at. She could repeat the sketch by heart, but somehow, when it came to moving, she struggled to put a "you are here" pin on herself, often leaving her disoriented. Ash, on the other hand, seemed to hold a complete radar system in his head. You better stay behind. I don't need to add a missing prefect to my to-do list. Ash teased. Spatial intelligence is different from... Save the lecture, Professor. I didn't learn it the last 100 times you tried to explain. And you wonder why you are never the genius child on a scholarship. They carried on in a friendly parry of words, excusing themselves as new students when the odd teacher asked why they were heading away from the direction of the assembly. At last, they were at the farm, where 2 policemen armed with M16 slept at their guard post. We should always have tranquilizers. Even Solid Sankey in Metal Gear Solid has his diazepam gun, Kay whispered. Well, this is not a video game and they are already asleep. From how one sat with his mouth agape, a string of drool tracing down his beard, Ash assumed they were probably exhausted from the night watch. For something so serious, she thought they should have worked shifts. It was impressive enough that they didn't just delegate this to one of the school security guards. The farm started like most, vegetable at the edge, tomatoes, peppers, red and yellow, okra, and others. Kay's poor culinary skills would not let him identity. As they made their way deeper, corn stalks began to emerge, and then finally they walked past the first tree. Oh, it's a whole forest now, Kay said. Yep, lots of these schools get these ridiculous plots of land they can never build out. Because what could go wrong? They can turn the rest into farmers and hope students never wander off. Hoofprints spotted, Kay blurted. Shh, you're going to get us killed. Ash shooshed him. Following the hoofprints that gouged the marshy ground, the trail led to the agriculture plot. Rows of corn stalks trampled into the mud, leaves glistening with saliva. Ash crouched, gloved fingers brushing a half-digested textbook page. Human Biology. Chapter 3. The Digestive System. Irony tasted bitter on her tongue. A twig snapped. The ruminator stood maybe 10 paces away, its obsidian horns dripping with sap and something darker. 4 yellow eyes rolled in their sockets, pupils slitting at the sight of them. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then its third stomach gurgled. Kay went pale. Is that... A muffled scream echoed from inside the beast. Alive, he's still alive in there. The monster charged straight at Kay, all eyes fixed on the red cape he had brought along for a distraction. Split, I'll be okay. Ash ran in the opposite direction, and to her partial relief, the beast chose to pursue Matador Kay. Kay showed himself to be every bit the runner prefect he was decorated with, sprinting in a zigzag pattern to confuse the ruminator. With its weight, maneuvers was definitely going to be a problem, and he was counting on a weak endurance too. Respirating for all those muscles had to take a toll. The thing was the size of an entire truck, and the ground shook with its steps, sending birds scattering in flight. After about 300 meters of zigzagging, it was obvious he had put some distance, enough to spin and offload 3 shots of the lopramide. It didn't require the skills of a marksman to hit the ruminator this close, and if anything, Kay's shot connecting with one of the 4 eyes was a mistake. But it was a good one nonetheless. Typically, he would have wanted to an intramuscular delivery system, and he managed that with 2 shots to the torso. The bullseye shot was his savior, though. In its pain, the ruminator let out a screech, sure to meet every corner of the school walls, and maybe a bit beyond. As if on command, Kay tossed the red cape, not wanting a beast this angry on his tail. He didn't stop running, though. He barely even looked back. When he made it out to the place with the vegetables, the police officers in their M16 and tactical gear were waiting with guns raised, while Ash stood behind them with nervousness that poured from her eyes. "Are you mad?" the bigger of the 2 officers shouted.
Okay. So first things first, you have to understand the episodic structure of whatever you're trying to write. And this applies to pretty much every genre. If you think about Scooby-Doo, for example, right? Every Scooby-Doo episode is almost the same episode. In the beginning, there's some kind of monster or ghost terrorizing a place. Then the gang hears about it. They go to investigate. They're first like, oh, there's no really monsters. There's no monsters here. Then the monster comes out. It scares them. Then eventually they split up. They always split up, and they go through all their trials separately, and then eventually they regroup and they catch the monster, and then it's like, oh, I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids. It's the same episode every time. CSI, same episode every time. There's a crime in the beginning. They come, they sweep the crime scene investigation, carry all the evidence, go back, look at the evidence. They track down some first suspect who it never is. Then they let him back into the streets. Then they eventually find the right person. All they change is the crime, the way it was executed, the motive, the location, things like that. But the skeleton of the story stays the same. So basically for my story, the skeleton that I came up with, there's an opening, there's an attack incident, there's a crime scene sort of like investigation by the school authorities. My lead prefects that contacted, these are my lead characters. They go for mission briefing. They transform into sort of, their hero outfit. They infiltrate the school. They go for a recon mission. They have encountered the monster for the first time. They get caught by the authorities. They prep for the final mission, and then they go and they defeat the monster and they save whoever. What is going to change now is the monster, the school, how they outsmart the monster, things like that, things around it basically. But the structure of the story is generally going to remain the same. Of course, I can switch up this structure like whenever I feel like, but the point is having it like this, you have something you can run with whenever you need to. So this is just a sample for the hero's journey, which is one of the more popular story structures, but this is for long form. This is used in Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, the Matrix. You just think of it basically, but don't worry, I'm not going to go through this now because we still have so much more to cover. But it's just an example of showing you that this is not just about short stories. What is your favorite genre? Whatever genre it is that is your favorite, or what, try and figure out what are the conventions in this genre. It doesn't mean you have to follow them. You can upset them, you can break them, you can do whatever you want with them, but at least knowing them helps you sort of start working on creating your own structure, right? And these structures, like, they're there because they work. This is me expanding on my story structure to give the AI more context. So as you can see here, we have these in sort of just a single line of what these bits mean. But here, I'm expanding it way bigger. So for this version, I say a first encounter with the monster by a student, staff, or any individuals in the school grounds. The encounter usually shows the person doing an everyday activity, farming, studying, sneaking out. Before being interrupted by the monster, they typically attempt to escape but are ultimately attacked. The monster either paralyzes, swallows, abducts, or wounds them in a way that leaves physical or supernatural evidence. So this is me basically telling the AI this is the sort of action I want at the open, giving it very specific guidance, not hyper specific, but generic but specific enough, basically. And I carry on with this through for every story beat, basically just explaining to it what needs to happen at this point. For 9, Ash and Kay conduct a stealthy investigation of the hotspots, e.g. school, farm, server room, abandoned classroom. They encounter the monster either partially or by sound, whatever. Usually the monster attacks, forcing them to split for a second or respond. Kay often engages physically, while Ash analyzes the weakness and gathers evidence. So again, this is me giving it more detailed instructions to build it. And if you remember what I said earlier, the more context you give the AI, the better it's going to be at working on your story. Carry this on up onto the last bit. And if you're wondering, you need to see this, we have an AI story club where we have links to a prompt library, so you get to see all these prompts. Anyways.
Kay and Ash found themselves in the headmaster's office, the smell of lemon polish and barely contained fury clogging the air. "On your knees," Headmaster Pius hissed. "Hands where I can see them." Ash and Kay exchanged a glance as they knelt on the cracked linoleum. Behind Headmaster Pius, a mounted buffalo head glared down with glassy eyes, its muzzle twisted in what looked like eternal pain. "You were explicitly told to avoid the agriculture plot. Were you even at the assembly this morning?" Pius's fist came down on his desk, sending a stapler jumping. "Do you have any idea what's out there? What could have happened to you?" Kay opened his mouth, but Ash nudged him before he get them in trouble. The door burst open before Pius could continue his tirade. Mr. Ike stood framed in the doorway, his lab coat sleeves rolled up to reveal faint silvery scars circling his wrists like teeth marks. "I'll handle this, Headmaster. There's a lot for you to attend to today. We even have the press outside wanting to know what is going on." His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with urgent meaning. "We wouldn't want parental involvement. I'll have them serve detention for a week." Pius's jaw worked silently before he waved them away with a snarl. "Make it 2 weeks, and next time you're both getting expelled. I don't care if you're on scholarship from Bill Gates or if Tinubu is your father." The detention room was conspicuously missing desks. Tucked away behind the chemistry lab, the supposed storage room had been converted to a makeshift armory. Crossbows with vials instead of bolts. A refrigerator humming with biohazard stickers, and a whiteboard covered in hastily erased stomach acid calculations. "I got what you asked for, Prefect Ash." Mr. Ike tossed Kay and Ash what looked like bath bombs, chalky spheres about the size of a small fist. Disulfram, ethanol, and some sodium bicarbonate base to hold it all together. A bit of cellulose as well, but that's barely an active ingredient. "So we just get it to swallow this and we are good?" Kay asked. "Yes, more or less," Mr. Ike replied. Kay looked at the one cabinet in the corner of the room. "The AP-90 is ready," Mr. Ike said. "Great, we leave at sunset. The boy doesn't have much time." "His name is Cheeky. Do you even read the files, or do you just skim through it?" Ash shook her head. "If I have to read everything, what's the point of having a scribe prefect with me?" Kay smiled. "And while we're at it, do you have a plan yet?" It was Ash's turn to smile. "Yes, I do. And it involves you almost getting killed." "When doesn't it?" Kay reached for the AP-90, balancing the payload tank on his back and adjusting the pressure shooter on both arms. "Makes me feel like Rambo every time." The ruminator slept in a crater of its own making, its massive sides rising and falling like a bellows pumping poison. Its breath stank of half-digested grass and something darker, something human. Kay moved like a shadow through the trampled cornfield. unspooling the carbon wire behind him. The filament was thinner than spider silk, stronger than steel. It glinted under the moonlight as he looped it around the beast's tree trunk legs, his fingers steady despite the sweat slicking his palms. "Wire set," he whispered into the radio, static. Then Ash's voice tight with anticipation, lighting it up. Kay raised the AP-90 already set to fire from the tranquilizer cartridge. The dart left the barrel with a soft hiss and punched into the ruminator's flank. The beast's eyes snapped open, all four of them, and on cue, a flare exploded overhead, bathing the field in hellish red. The ruminator roared, its pupils contracting to slits as it locked onto Ash's silhouette in the distance. It lunged, and the carbon wire sang as it went taut. Tendons popped as the beast crashed face first into the dirt, its own momentum strangling the blood supply to its legs. It thrashed, jaws gnashing, but the tranquilizers were already flooding its veins. Its eyelids fluttered, its breath slowed, then collapse. The mouth yawned open, a wet cave of teeth and dangling spit. Kay didn't hesitate. He dropped the heavy AP-90, which would have been too heavy for what he was about to do, strapped on his headlamp, double-checked to make sure the MS's bomb was with him, and then crawled inside the beast. The throat was a living tunnel, pulsing slowed by the loperamide shots from earlier. Stomach acid sloshed around Kay's boots as he waded deeper, the beam of his light catching on half-dissolved textbooks, a melted shoe, bones that weren't animal. He spared no shot of the antacids in every direction. Then, a whimper. Cheek was curled in the reticulum chamber, his uniform eaten away, his skin blistered with chemical burns. Alive, barely. "Found him," Kay radioed, gagging on the stench. "Prepping extraction." He slapped the emesis bomb onto the stomach wall. The chalky drug instantly began to fizz as it bonded with the flesh, flooding the system with the active ingredients. 5 seconds to blow, hang on, Chike. Swoosh. The ruminator's body convulsed and its throat surged. Kay and Cheeky came flying out in a tidal wave of bile and half-digested slop, skidding across the mud just as the school security arrived, flashlights cutting through the dark. Headmaster Pius stood frozen, his face a mask of horror. Mr. Ike stepped forward, his voice low and calm. "African bull elephant, extremely rare. Must have escaped from a private zoo." He flashed a badge so official looking it could have been forged by the league itself. "We'll handle disposal." Ash was already on the phone. "Zoo lab team en route. Tell them to bring a big crate." Chica coughed, spat, then looked up at Kay with wide, traumatized eyes. "I failed my agriculture coursework, didn't I?" Kay grinned. "Probably, buddy, but you aced survival."
How do you actually do the writing? Let us say you've created your storyline, you're ready. How do you actually get to the writing? 3 simple steps. Step 1, prep your context Bible. Step 2, upload your context Bible and your plot line. Step 3, prompt for fractal results. Now, don't worry if that all sounds like gibberish. I'm going to show you exactly step by step how you do this process. Step 1, let's look at the context Bible. What is a context Bible? Now, when it comes to creating your context Bible, all you need to do is create a document that pretty much has your concept of this world. So this is the concept for the League of Extraordinary Prefects, right? Here you have the history. This history sort of like shows you where did this league come from, how did it originate. So say for X-Men, for example, this would be the origin story, right? For Superman, the story of his planet being destroyed and him being sent in the capsule. For Batman, it would be the story of his parents getting shots when he was a child. So this is basically your lore, your backstory. Oh yeah, and by the way, like I said, we have access to all this for all the members of the AIStoryLab club. So if you wanted to create your own world, this is a guide where you sort of fill this out, and with this information, it sort of helps you create your own world. Yeah. Okay, so here, of course, we have the summary, which I already read out. Set in modern day Nigeria with hidden paranormal on the world, blah, blah, blah. Here it has the genre. Like we said, it has the references as well. You know, you can fill this out yourself. Then here it has the core concepts, right? So in Harry Potter, this would be things like maybe the wand, the houses, in Matrix, this would be things like, the different worlds, concepts like the key maker, For my world, for example, this is about the prefects. What are the initiation rituals? What are the powers and the badges? What are the different types of prefects? What are the ranks? Stuff like that. And you can fill this out to create your own world, like I said. Then for the monsters, you have, the different kinds of monsters. You have, their classifications, what they eat. You have this humivores, for example. These are things that feed on only blood. So vampires, for example, would be classified under this. Little workbook for you there. You have the technology. If you were doing sort of like a fantasy magical world, for example, this would be where you would have your magic systems and stuff like that. We have sort of like the two main weapons in this series: the all-purpose 77. It's a small dart pistol, and then sort of the bigger backpack dart/pump pistol. And of course, because League of Extraordinary Prefects is designed for sort of young adults and teens, we don't want to use actual guns because that's just a bit violent. And there are other equipments that you would see in the world. Of course, you would also have people and places. So say if you were doing something like Batman, for example, the Bat Cave is a place that features a lot in the world. So it would make sense to, have that in your context Bible. So here you have their HQs, their shadow roads, mobile offices, in-school enclaves. So one of the things you have in this world is that in the different schools, they have sort of like maybe like a teacher who is affiliated with the league, and they have like a little enclave in those schools as well. So it's just sort of you putting the world together for the AI, basically. Of course, you would have characters. So here I explain, the backstory of the characters, who they are, the kind of attitude they have, So this way, when the AI is writing about them, it has an idea of who they are, and it's not just sort of creating rubbish from its mind. Anyways, and of course you have the plot structure as well, which is the story beats basically. And like I said, all this stuff is available if you are a member of our club for absolutely free. And our club is not expensive; it's just a one-time yearly fee. It's a little token, so to speak. Right. Okay. Once you have this context document done, next thing is your plot document. So basically, everything you see, all these files, all available for our members. Okay. So you have this plot document. So this is a typical way that I write one of these chapters. So here I define the villain. Vampito is a mix of a vampire and a mosquito. I know, super creative. I might describe it: a humanoid monster with chameleon and mosquito gene, allowing it to blend into the environment. It exists as vampires in the West. So this is sort of, just me trying to make a little reference going on there. If the effect, when it sucks your blood, it leaves a venom that gives you a fever and paralyzes you, sort of like an extreme malaria. You can see me sort of trying to draw those analogies. Quaric, it moves only at night like a mosquito, moves very fast, hard to catch, needs to feed on blood, animal or human to survive. Habitat, swampy areas. You can sort of see what I'm going for here, right? And if you wanted to create a story within the universe as one of our members, you really just get to fill this in and you can create your own story. So cool. But so this is the plot line. So what am I doing? I am following the directions that I showed you earlier, where I say in the first encounter, blah, 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 the monster meets the students, XYZ happens. But now I am giving it details, right? So I'm giving it, Emekai, a JSS3 boy in Waterside Academy sneaks off to water storage tank in hopes of getting water from the tank, blah, blah, blah. So now I am giving it direction. I'm telling it this is exactly sequence by sequence what I want to happen. And I do this for all the story beats. So I tell it here, then this happens, I tell it here, and I tell it here. So I've filled out all these bits basically, and if you got this workbook, you could just fill in yours in here, and when you generate it, you get a pretty dope story. But the thing is, I don't have to fully write every little bit and bob. I'm just telling it, Ash and Kay get their secret identity for the mission, paying their badge, transforming the children and get into the Waterside Academy uniform. Ash is always a scholarship student from the Emelu grant for scholars, while Kay is repeating JSS3 for the third time. So when people think, like AI writing is going to be like the laziest thing, you don't have to put any effort, I just laugh because no, if you want to create stuff that is actually cool and sounds like you and has your ideas in it, you have to give direction, right? But yeah, okay, so I load all this up to the end, yeah, and what do I do next? I go to ChatGPT, or pretty much any DeepSeek does this perfectly as well. Any of the chat bots, they're all pretty much good. I upload my context documents. Yeah, that's uploaded, and then here I pretty much copy and paste. So you can just upload it as well. It really depends. But yeah, I copy and paste that prompt, which is the plot. So as you can see, reaction to the crime scene, contacting the prefect. I just copy it, and this is the instruction. Using the content attached as reference, I want to write Tales of Vampito, the Bloodsucker, by section using the following info. Then I plot breakdown of Vampito, and I give it the plot breakdown. And then all I have to do now is tell it. It gives me section 1. I tell it section 2. Gives me section 2. I tell it section 3. Gives me section 3. That's just pretty much it. And when you come here, you can see the results. All you have to just do is copy and paste, and you're good. Golden. Anybody can do this. Literally anybody can. I mean, obviously you have to have a little bit of storytelling ideas, but pretty much almost anybody can do this. Now, what if you don't know what to put in the box? Yeah? What if you don't know what to put in the box? Let's say, I don't know, you're having writer's block or whatever. You've created your world, but you're struggling with advancing the stories. Is there another way? Of course there is. You can let AI do it for you. How does that work? Again, you put in the world building document, or the context Bible, as I like to call it. And this is why it's so important. It just gives it that baseline for the story. And the more complex you can make your world document, just developing the characters and all that, the better outputs your story is going to have. You put in the world building document, you put in an example so you can reference. If you don't have an example, it's fine. If you've never created an episode before, you can also just put in your story beats to give it direction. So here's what I see. Create a new episode with a monster with Sesafly powers, giving students sleeping sickness in class. Use the plot breakdown system in the attachment. Start by generating section by section summaries as seen in the template. Start with section 1. So what am I doing here? I am asking it to first generate the log line of the story. And this is because I want to sort of give it 2 levels of prompting, basically. So the first gives it the structure, and then the second, it's now turning the structure to prose. And this is exactly what it looks like. And again, the links to these prompts as well are all available for our members. So you can actually go in and look at the prompts directly, copy and paste if you want. We're a very generous community. But yeah. So I upload the 2 files, and I say create an episode with this Sesafly powers giving students sleeping sickness in class. I already read this. So it gives me the direction here and the summary. Yeah, reaction and crime scene, direction here and the summary. So I get that for all the sections, right? all the sections. And when I get to the end, I say, now using the section you have outlined, generate testify terror story, taking one section at a time, starting with section 1, the opening incident. So it now converts all the story log lines to the actual story. So now we're actually reading, like proper prose, basically. And you do the same thing for section 2, section 3, and then you just copy and paste and you have your story. Voila. You don't even have to really know the story you want to tell. That's just how easy it is. And of course, if you're wondering how we do the illustration as well, super easy, right? So if you wanted to illustrate something, you again put in your context building document, and then put in the episode that you wanted to illustrate, or you can just paste the episode in the chat box. Same difference. I prompt it. I want to illustrate the story of the Great Ruminator. I want a portrait perspective and a comic strip style, showing panels 2 to 4 frames. Try to represent each section with the available panels. Start with section 1. Why does this prompt work? Right. I want to illustrate the story of the Great Ruminator. So this is the foundational instruction. This is what we want to do. It tells it portrait perspective, comic strip format with multiple panel frames. So this gives it perspective. It tells it the form we want it in. Illustrates each action available with available panels. This gives it guidance, and okay, this is how to use the panels you have, right? Then I say, give me a description first. This is something that I like doing all the time with the AI. Let it give you the idea of the prompts, then you use that for it. Basically, that way you don't even have to think completely of the prompt that you need to give it to. It just gives you a version that you can give back to it. And of course, I say start with section 1, which is me putting it in the fractal framework, because it cannot do everything at the same time. If you said generate 12 pictures for me to capture this whole episode in one, it's not going to happen, right? So it gives me this response, and I think I can show you for this as well. Yeah, so it gives me this response. It tells me this is the first panel, second panel, third panel, fourth panel. Then I ask it to generate this, then it gives me the image. And then you see now look at this. I tell it now for section 2, and this is the wrong image. So I have to tell it to describe it before drawing. So it describes again, and then I ask it to draw. This description actually helps it remember. You have to remember this machine is not a person. It's not, I mean, even people forget, let alone machines. Exactly. But yeah, you can just keep generating for each of the slides. And of course, if you're not on the paid version, you have limited, but you can generate 2, come back later on, do 2 more, whatever you have to do. Or you can use the Facebook one, which I think is actually free. So yeah, that is how the image generation works as well. And we are back here. Awesome. So I hope this has been somewhat useful to you, I guess. It would be really cool if you guys can join the community. It's not the biggest, but growing. And we have cool things like we have story competitions, we have prompting competitions for images, for text. We have the prompt library that you have access to. We have the open IP structure. You'd be able to use our content to make your content and even earn from it as well. And it's just a cool community. So yeah, thank you for watching. Again, I am William Moore. Bye.